To wrap up the early Cold War, in 1952, Dwight Eisenhower is elected president. Eisenhower was a hero of World War II. He had led the D Day invasions, and when he becomes president, he brings with him an approach to Cold War issues that is much less confrontational than Harry Truman's. He wants to avoid a conflict with the Soviet Union as much as possible. And that is because both countries have nuclear weapons. And if the Soviet Union launched its nuclear weapons, the US would launch its, and both nations would be wiped out. Nobody wins. So that is definitely what Eisenhower's trying to avoid. In the first 6 months of his presidency, Eisenhower negotiates an armistice in the Korean War. Now, this is just an armistice. Both sides essentially agree to stop fighting, and they agree to a demilitarized zone between the two countries, in which both nations cannot bring troops or war material into that zone. It is an often repeated fact that the war never officially ended because they simply agreed to an armistice. There was no official treaty that was signed. So some people will tell you that the Korean War technically still continues today. But the fighting ended in 1953 during the first 6 months of Eisenhower's administration. Eisenhower's approach to Cold War issues was known as the New Look policy. Now, under a New Look, the United States would try to accumulate as many nuclear weapons as possible. The reason for that was they felt that the more nukes that we had, the less likely it was that somebody would attack us. And the plan was, if the United States was attacked, we would respond with massive retaliation. So if the Soviet Union attacked one of our ships, we would respond by launching our nuclear weapons. And according to Eisenhower's plans, this would seriously discourage any country from considering attacking the United States. One of the more significant events that takes place while Eisenhower's president is the launch of Sputnik and the beginning of the space race. So a Sputnik, which is pictured here, or a replica of it at least, was the first man-made satellite to be launched into space. And it was launched by the Soviet Union in 1957. Now, this was very scary to the American people. What if the Soviet Union used it to drop weapons on the United States? Or what if they used it to spy on the United States? And there was a feeling that the United States had to respond. So a year later, in 1958, the United States launched its first satellite, which was named Explorer. And very soon after that, Eisenhower created NASA with the goal of getting the first man into space. So not only were we competing with the Soviet Union over a territory, and not only were we competing with the Soviet Union in collecting and developing nuclear weapons, but now we're actually competing with the Soviet Union in space.